Thank you all for joining in. It's a weekend, it's Saturday morning. I'm really excited to see the turnout over here. And for the next roughly 90 minutes or less, we are going to talk about data driven marketing, especially in the social impact sector. That how can we use the various insights from data driven marketing to scale the social impact that we are trying to create by different initiatives. Okay. So, even before we delve into the technicalities, a little bit about me. My name is Sparsh. I am in the marketing team over here at ISDM. So, when I was having my education, I was a happy little guy trying to understand the corporate and the dynamics of the world. I went ahead and did a bunch of professional courses, and I thought, oh, I'm an expert at understanding how impact works across different sectors, whether they be BFSI, FMCG, education, etc. Till the point I landed in a grassroots project and here I realized how far away from impact we are. And that was shocker, eye opener, disillusionment, disheartenment, whatever you can call it. But when I was on the ground, actually, the grassroots the first time, I realized there's a lot we need to do. And I think since then, I've been on this route that I'll try to put my knowledge of marketing and communication and draw parallels between how we work in a usual corporate setup and draw the same insights to work in the social or the development sector. It's been an interesting journey, hasn't been easy, but it's been fun. And, it's always been good to see like-minded people, the ones like you have joined in and you want to try to put their skills to use in this sector. So that's enough about me. Now we want to go and talk about little bit, around what is data driven marketing. I would assume that, well, at least the word data and the word marketing. You have put it to use at some point in their life. Uh, and if I just want to give a very layman approach, that how do you actually use data to drive results and action in your daily life? So let's say, it's your friend's birthday. You want to throw a party for him or her. You have two options. You can throw a pizza party or you can throw a biryani party. But because you have known this person, your friend, for let's say 5 6 years, you know his or her dietary preferences, what do they like, what they don't like, and you know that they like pizza and they're not that big fan of a biryani. Your call automatically would be, hey, I'll throw a pizza party for my friend so that my friend is happy. That essentially is what data driven approach looks like. You knew your friend, you knew your friend's preferences and choices, and you took an action based on your friend's preferences and choices to ensure your friend was happy. That was a very basic birthday party you threw, but it was a data driven approach you took. And essentially, that's what in marketing data driven approach would look like. So, as I said, in any marketing campaign, knowing your audience is half the battle. You know your friend. You knew what he likes or what he does not like. You are able to cook up something that he likes. Your friend is happy. You have won the battle. So, at its core, data driven marketing would be making decisions based on evidence rather than guesswork or biases or hunches. you know uh, it's a mystery you're trying to solve when you're trying to run a campaign to engage people. We have a very strong intent that we'll go by our biases or by hunches, but at the same point of time, if we are doing it based on evidence, if we are doing it based on based on past trends that we have observed, the chances of that being working and that being successful is higher. And whichever setup you are working in, there are only 3 to 4 steps to follow in any data driven marketing approach. You collect the data, that is where you gather information about your audience, about their operations, about their preferences. You analyze the data, you try to look for meaningful takeaways, and then you act on insights, which is you try to make decisions based on what you have learned. In the later slides, I'll delve deeper into how you do this and throw some examples. But essentially, understanding an audience and tailoring your approach to their needs or preference, that will ensure your marketing campaign is going to be successful. Now, I always have this interesting conversation with the people in the sector or even from outside the sector. When I'm talking about data, everyone is on board. Data is the key term outside. Data is what the world is building upon, so they are very interested to know what data is, how can they capture data, what more data sources are available. I talk about marketing and communications, they're even more interested. They want to reach out to the audience, they want to do it in the best manner possible. So, every conversation around data driven marketing is very, very fruitful, is very interesting. It goes in the right direction till I talk about data driven marketing for social impact. That's where the entire conversation takes a talk. They're like, "Arey, this cannot happen, this does not make sense, we are very, very suspicious of this being successful in the social sector." And there are multiple reasons over there. I've tried to put out a few most common ones that I've encountered in my life. When I put something on the screen, I would want to understand that in your experience, have you ever had this discussion where that, if I can call it a hypothesis, or if I can call it a hunch that people have, has been relevant for you. So the biggest one that I get is marketing is for businesses and not social causes. Can all the attendees, let me know, have you ever had this discussion where this topic has come up before? You can probably use a react button to show that this is a conversation at least you have had where the takeaway is marketing is for businesses and not social causes. Okay, lucky. I feel that a lot of you haven't encountered. Lucky for you. Another one that I very, very regularly get is data-driven strategies don't account for ground realities. That you sit with the data on your laptop, you sit with the data in a office in a tier one or even a tier two city, whereas the ground realities are different, and you cannot take decisions based solely on data. Anyone you have encountered this before? Okay. The third, probably one of the most common ones, is social impact is too complex to be driven by data, and there are so many factors in creating and scaling social impact that sometimes you cannot be totally dependent on data. Hence, people shy away from data-driven marketing as an overall approach. Lastly, the one that I get is, at least in the social sector, data is expensive, very hard to collect, very hard to work upon. You already run on razor thin budgets, razor thin margins. You cannot go around investing in data, in tools to extract and analyze data. Hence, your marketing approaches do not involve data driven mentality or a data driven focus when you are reaching out to the different stakeholders that you have. So while there are many, these three and four have been the most common ones, have which I have encountered, and I do not disagree with them. The sole reason is that our entire data ecosystem in the Indian development sector is very fragmented. People are torn between building up a data ecosystem versus creating impact. And while ideally these cannot be two distinct and separate, school of thoughts, they should overlap because of the resource constraint, because of the time constraint, because of the complexities of working in the ground. Usually these becomes two different school of thought. And while we do not disagree as marketers that this is a major problem, and we'll also see how these exist as a problem in the system, we have to take a call whether we just give in to the problem or we try to come up with some way to work around it. So one of the things that you always get to hear is that there is scattered data. Think from a SPOs or a NGOs perspective. They will have information across multiple sources, Excel sheets, laptops, people take notes on the ground. Sometimes people just remember stuff. They have been on the ground so many times, they have met with the community so many times, they know and remember stuff, but it is not documented. Anyone of I think I see a raised hand, Supriya. Simran, can you help?
Yes, but I was actually about to stop you, but you were just in the flow, so I didn't do that.
No, no.
So, Priya, your hand was raised. Do you have a question? I guess no. It was maybe a previous reaction to your
Oh,
answer.
okay.
Yeah, you can continue, Splash.
Yeah. So, I would assume a lot of you have been on the ground, and this is valid for you as well. You carry your laptop to a village doing a data survey. Your laptop battery dies out. There's no electricity, so you keep everything probably in a notepad. Sometimes you scribble it on a piece of paper, and then because when you are back, there is not enough time to consolidate it. Your data, your information is spread across multiple sources, and that becomes a huge problem when you're trying to later try to draw a holistic insight around it. Another one that we get to see is incomplete data. So think from a SPO that is trying to run a education program in a village. They will want to know how many kids attended a literacy program. So they'll start a drive, they'll get student registrations, but maybe a month later, kids start to drop out. And at times, we do not keep a record of why that dropout happened. So the next time when you are trying to run a similar campaign, you are missing on a very important bit that you started the program in a month and then kids started dropping out, but you haven't kept a record of it. So that makes your data incomplete, which means next time when you actually go and try to run a same program in a similar community, you will end up facing the same challenges and the same problems. It's pretty much like you will be forced to commit the same mistakes next time because your data was incomplete and you did not have time to assimilate it. The third one that goes around very commonly is underutilized data. Let's say even in the previous case, one of you is on the ground and you go to a village and see, okay, we started the program in a season and 2 months later there's a harvest season and kids started dropping out, which means somewhere the parents pulled the kids out of school to put them back on the field, and you have put a note of the data, but because it is not centralized, it is not accessible, somebody who's creating the program again, let's say this incident happened in Bihar, now you're trying to run a similar program in Uttar Pradesh, you had an insight, but because it is either not documented or not centralized, they will miss on the key insight that harvest season will see kids dropping out of school again. What is our action plan around it? It is it is sad that the recurrence of the incident will be there, but because the data was underutilized, you cannot probably would have had the foresight to include it in your program when you restructure it. And the fourth things, the most common thing I heard from program managers, but I agree, we have scattered data, incomplete data, underutilized data, but we don't have budgets and we don't have technology to assimilate it. We have so many constraints. How can we even go around looking for data when I have to fight for impact on the ground? While this is true, again, if we put a innovative hat around it, there is potential of solving it, but because of all, like, these are 3 4 problems at the top of my head, but because a plethora of similar problems exist, every time somebody wants to put a data driven marketing approach in social impact, they are already on the back foot and they have so many concerns that they decide not to. And while is the ground reality, there is a huge potential to change it. It's like you are at a crossroads, you have limitations and you have a path for innovation. What is the one that you're going to choose? The entire ecosystem makes it feel like let's align to the limitations, but then there are some, and I'll put up one case which I find very interesting, where the program managers or whoever was behind that entire program chose innovation, and it took a lot of time but it showed result. And I particularly am a big fan of it because it happened in the time when data was not very digitally accessible. You needed to put a very innovative hat around your entire thinking process. Data was there, it was fragmented, scattered, underutilized, not even accessible due to lack of digital nature, but there was somebody who thought, I'll take the innovative path. That was the Pulse Polio program that ran in India. It ran for almost 20, 30 years. And in the late 90s, early 2000s, when the program was at its peak, the team encountered apart from all the logistical and the challenges that they had, they encountered two major challenges. There were very low vaccination rates among some communities, among some areas, and there were high risk populations. And while the government was funding the entire exercise, there were people on the ground. This problem was not being solved. Every time at the end of the year or at the end of a campaign, the people, they sat down, they still encountered low vaccination rates, they still encountered populations where vaccination was not possible. And they would have had the easy way of going to the party and saying, hey, you know what, we can't access, I can't analyze the data, I can't think of any strategy, we'll just have to go wing it on the fly, do it by the hunch. They decided to take the tougher, innovative approach. And they started with something as basic as they took up the historical polio and vaccination data. They took up which are the areas which were prevalent with polio, which are the areas which have a low and a high vaccination rate. And they started to what we today call segment the audience. They looked at the trends and they started segmenting the audience. So they made, like, obviously they made multiple segments, but for the sake of this discussion, if I pick up three broader segments, there were families who voluntarily vaccinated. So probably they took a leave even on a weekday, they made sure the kids did not miss the follow-up vaccinations. And that was one set of audience that the pulse polio team identified. Then there were families who were hesitant due to misinformation. So, every time any kind of medical drive comes in, people fall victim to rumors. A lot of rumor mongering happens. People do not know, if there is a benefit of the program. So there's a lot of misinformation that happened. These people would probably go and get their kid vaccinated if somebody catered to their misinformation. And then there were families who probably would have wanted to get their kids vaccinated when a survey happened, but a vaccination center was not accessible. So let's say, I'm from Bihar. If I think of it, of my village in 1990s, there was no road. So, you would have to take help of a bullock cart to reach it. If the vaccination team was not able to reach the village, the same problem was applicable for the villagers. They would not have reached to a nearest block or a PHC where a camp was being run. So hence they were involuntarily left out probably from this entire exercise. And then the ground level strategies was adopted to cater to the audience and see how we can build on these trends. So the families who were voluntarily vaccinating, they were portrayed as community champions. So in the community where, let's say somebody completed the entire doses, usually probably this was a thing that was more visible in the urban community. Next time the pulse polio team was on the ground, they brought those people on board to perpetrate their voice within the communities that, hey, you know what, I took a leave on a Wednesday to go and make sure my kid is vaccinated, why shouldn't you? So that portrayal as a community champion helped, spread the word within the urban communities. And where we had the hesitancy due to misinformation or misconceptions, they engaged community leaders to firstly educate the people. They did not go on the same road that, hey, we are here, come get vaccinated. Even months before the vaccination happened, they identified community leader, whether it was a religious figure or somebody like in the Gram Panchayat or a teacher in a sarkari school who people really looked up to. They went around holding small workshops where they educated the people that, hey, this is a misconception, this is the actual ground reality, this is the path that you should take, this is the benefit that arrives, this is the risk of not vaccinating your child. And that helped remove the hesitancy from the communities. So when the drive day of the polio drops came, they were at the polio booths. They were in larger numbers than before, and that's how you combat hesitancy. A small number of people will be the early adopters, and once the community starts seeing them, they'll try to follow the suit. And lastly, where they realized that families had no access to vaccination center, the entire idea of mobile vaccinations and door-to-door drives came. That, okay, you want your kid to be vaccinated, you cannot come to the nearest block. Let's get a team of volunteers, go around this entire village and make sure everyone gets vaccinated. If they had not observed the data, prima facie the data would look like, let's say, Buxar in Bihar, people are not vaccinating. What are the reasons? Until you know the reasons, you would not go and take the actual action behind it. Now when they realized, okay, this village has no vaccination center and probably there's no logistical feasibility of setting up a center, we'll do a mobile drive, we'll do door to door campaigns. So that is how data informed their action. And this is what data driven marketing strategy, data driven operation strategy, if you can call it. So that's how the entire program went, running on data analysis, running on identifying trends, running on countering negative trends. And in the end, what happened around 2013 and 14, India was able to knock out polio successfully from the entire country and from the entire demographics. Could this have been possible without a data driven approach? Well, I would not say no, but the turnaround time would have been much higher. They would have to have countered a lot of problems which they could have solved if the same trend was observed in Andhra Pradesh. Now you know that that trend was countered in Andhra Pradesh due to action A. That action is also possible to work in Punjab or a Jammu and Kashmir. But had they been working in solos, not trying to identify trends, the entire success that India had in the Pulse Polio campaign might not have been possible, or at least in that timely and that streamlined manner. So this was the time when it was 1990s. We did not have that many mobiles. We did not have that much computer infrastructure. Internet was a luxury. The number of people knowing Excel and Tableau and BI were like, you can count on your fingers. And even in that time, somebody decided to take the path of innovation rather than just giving into the limitations, and they turned the entire scenario around and created the magic. So when the lot of you who are over here, when you step into this world, you will always face that hesitancy from your team members who have prior biases, that let's not delve too much into data, let's stick to the usual that we have been doing. It is the onus that you will carry as the new set of individuals who are trying to scale and change the work social impact works, that you will put data driven strategies, or at least you'll put a data driven thought a hat before you even take a decision and validate the decision, because it has worked. Pulse polio campaign is just one which I pulled up specifically to counter that idea that, oh, it's internet age and they had data. It was way before that, but the idea of having that mindset shift is what we require from the younger generations and the people who are trying to build a career and create an impact in this sector. Uh, I will take a quick pause, and I'll want to, I've tried to lay down some of the parallels between how you do data driven approach in a corporate setup versus a social setup. But till now, do any of you have any questions, any concerns that I need to, respond to, or any thoughts in general? Okay. So now we have crossed the first barrier. The first barrier was, will data driven marketing or can data driven marketing work in the social sector? There are evidences. There are small, large evidences, sometimes at a program level, sometimes at a, smaller scale. But the idea is data driven marketing can work. Now, the idea is, how do you put it to work? And while there are multiple takeaways that, can be there around it. Yeah, so Ankita is saying data on social norms possess a significant challenge as it varies considerably across different contexts. That's totally true. As a innovative marketer, your challenge would be trying to see if you can actually contextualize and come up with some trends. Will it be always possible? No. But then there will be times when you can at least see some similarities, and then you can make sure your efforts on marketing are maybe optimized. And as you rightly said, every community, every grassroots, community, even in the larger scale or a smaller scale, will have a lot of different viewpoints, which again are being captured by people who may have their own biases kick in. But if you are able to put some trend or some contextualization around it, your impact or the opportunity of impact will be higher. So not easy, but again, not totally undoable. Yeah. So there's no, thank you, Ankita, for putting this out. That we know never. So one of the things that people say with you cannot measure empathy with data, and you cannot have data replace empathy. We are not here to replace empathy with data. We are here to make sure that we put data as a tool that helps us be more empathetic and more empathetic in an informed and pragmatic manner. Me just feeling bad for a community that, oh, I'm so sad that they are not able to get jobs, is never going to work. We have to think that yes, the truth is they're not getting jobs. What is the reason that is stopping them from getting it? And if you're able to do that, I think being informed and empathetic is more important than just being empathetic for us to create the impact that we look at. Okay, so how do you use data analysis to refine your strategies and reach the key audiences? All of us are victim to it. You watch one action movie on Netflix. Netflix is going to show you every action movie available. You go on Amazon and buy something, they pick up your preferences. They are showing it day in and day out, that what exactly you like and how they can boost their sales. Now, will a SPO have that level of resource and that level of time and money to do the data analytics for audience segmentation that a Netflix or an Amazon does? No. But then can we even do it? Yes, the purpose of data analytics over here roughly is to make sure that you identify, segment and target the right audience. So that your message reaches the right people at the right time in the right tonality, whether it's a Netflix or it's a social impact. This needs to happen. For example, if you are trying to run a blood donation campaign in a metro city, for example, let's say you can pick up NCR, who is going to be your major target audience? Well, you want everyone to donate. But if you pick up the past trends and the past reports, you will see that younger professionals, maybe who are, in jobs or in colleges, are your major, donor community. And then they are more prone to donate probably during weekends, because weekday may they have colleges and jobs. Which means if you run a blood donation campaign, let's say in a cyber city on a Friday and a Saturday, probably the turnout will be higher, or near a university, then probably the turnout will be higher. Social proof is something students today are really fond of. So if you want a entire college community to come and donate blood, you will have if I see my friend in college donating blood, putting an Insta post around it, my chances of doing the same will be higher, because students love social proof. You can leverage that social proof in your favor to make sure that the entire drive happens. So coming back to how do you actually use data analysis to refine your strategies? The first thing is define your marketing goals and metrics. Now, why does this important? Why does this become important? Is your campaign cannot do everything at once. So, if you are running a campaign, usually it's either for brand awareness, is it for conversions, it is for consideration. Sometimes we fall prey that, oh, I'll run a campaign, it will make people aware, it will make them convert, and it will also make them become the long term supporters. That's a mistake. If I look at the larger technologies, software as a service, or even streaming, they very carefully segment the goals, that okay, this is a awareness campaign versus this is an conversion campaign. So firstly, we have to do about that, we have to be very careful when we define the entire marketing goal, that if I am, or if a non-profit, for example, is running a campaign on maternal health, what is their goal? They want to increase awareness about free maternal health checkups in India. versus they want to go to a community and even talk about why maternal health is necessary. Your audience becomes distinctly different in both of these cases, and so will your approach. So next time as a marketer in the social sector, when you are tasked by your leads and managers to make campaign, do not go full throttle around it. Take a step back and see, okay, for this campaign, what is my goal and what should be the metrics. So in the case that I was explaining, a non-profit talking about maternal health, if you're doing it in a gram panchayat, your KPIs would become more and more women in the age group of 18 to 25 or 30 attending your workshop, versus if you're running an awareness campaign about free maternal health checkups in India over a digital medium, your KPIs would become how have your ads been performing, how have people responded to your SMS responses, etc. If you're running a health camp later, what has been the footfall around it. So that becomes your first key step. And then once you have segmented like the marketing goal and identify your audience, you analyze the audience data. As I said, if you're trying to run a blood donation campaign, your audience is most likely going to be working professional students. Then where to get them, how to engage them, when to engage them. Trust me, if you run a blood donation camp in a cyber park in Noida or Gurgaon on a Monday morning, your turnout is going to be potentially lower because people have Mondays packed up. But probably on a Friday morning or even midweek, when we have trends of people being a little bit more relaxed, corporate professionals especially, you will have better turnout. So that audience data you should pick up from the previous trends, analyze it, and then segment it for personalization. You know, just imagine LIC sends an ad to your dad and you. Can the tone and the messaging be similar? Ideally it should not be, because what will help my dad relate more to insurance is way different than what I will be more focused to. I may look at it as a tax saving measure. My dad will look at it as a critical measure because he is into his 60s and he needs those health insurance to tackle for any kind of illness that comes through. If they reverse the message and send me that, hey, you can have a cardiac arrest right now, I would probably be thrown off by the message, versus if they send my dad a text that use insurance as a mean to save taxes. It doesn't make sense to him. Yeah. Okay. So I'll just take a pause. Ankita has a question. Working with indigenous communities present an even greater challenge as access to internet and digital devices remain a distant reality. In such cases, what can be done? The data is likely to be skewed or may fail to capture the voices who remain invisible. Okay. So in such a case, your ideal approach should be having a local, from that community, somebody who has the influence over the community versus, and also has the inclination to be the initial change maker. You should not just go and try to target the community to get all the data, versus you can try to find a voice within the community, and then the chances of your data being skewed might be lesser. Like for example, we are always guilty of planning an initiative for the grassroots, thinking that, oh, I'll understand the problem and plan it for them. Because as you said, when I go to, let's say, a fisherman community in Tamil Nadu and try to gauge their problems from them, I may get very very subjective data. And then the problem becomes, I try to form a campaign or a solution from them without getting them involved. I feel, and I'm trying to validate this theory. It may take a lifetime to do that, but these communities, they hold a lot of latent potential. If I'm able to tap into them, I do not need to plan a program for them. Rather, I can plan it with them. They have survived. They know the solution. They need somebody to enable access to the resources. So, in your case, if I am going to draw, like, if I want to talk about education in the fisherman community in Tamil Nadu, I should talk to people from the community who are potential influencers within the community, try to understand the problem for them. And while there are offline modes to track interviews, you can talk to them, you can record the voice, for example, and then you have so many transcription tools to transcribe it. rather than just trying to take note of it and then trying to put it in a Word doc and Excel. So when you're on the ground collecting information, you will have to be a little bit innovative, that if you are able to record that entire conversation, then transcribe it and then try to draw trends from it rather than doing the trend analysis there. So make the on ground exercise more of a data collection. Don't have any bias. Don't try to collect or not collect any type of data. Collect all type of information which is coming through, probably with the help of a local influencer within the community. And then once you are back at your home quarters or headquarters, whatever you decide to call, that's when you put everything to context and then you try to analyze. So you should not have the idea that within 4 interviews you realize, oh, the problem that there is no school. No, the problem could be that even when a school is built, fishermen may not see value of their kids going to school because none of them have had an example of a kid going to school and then graduating and having a stable livelihood. So we have to be very careful when we are in these situations, like on the grassroots, on ground in an indigenous community. Your goal, if you're there for a data collection, should be solely data collection at that point of time and not data inference. And one of the things that has worked for my teams in the past is recording and then transcribing and then seeing it everything together to form a very holistic opinion. I hope that answers you, Supriya and Ankita. Thank you. Yeah, so what I was saying was segmentation. I gave an LIC example, but even if you want to run a tree plantation campaign, CSR wings of companies will have an ESG goal. Urban millennials are more into sustainability. So you cannot have blanket messaging for everyone. You need to know your audience and then tailor accordingly. The fourth thing which becomes, which even larger corporates are very guilty of not doing. So I won't even call out social sector. We are too resource crunched, is that we need to always test, measure, and refine a campaign. What we do that again, because of the resource constraint, because of the mindset, we sometimes feel that marketing is static. It is not. Whatever you have assimilated from the ground, you create a hypothesis around it, and then you run a campaign. There is a very good chance that your hypothesis can be invalidated because again, we are not 100% experts at 100% of things we do. So we need to be very careful to see how we can optimize performance, especially for us because we are resource crunched. You and I cannot run a campaign which was wrongly designed or wrongly conceptualized, had a wrong messaging for a wrong audience. For example, just think of a Facebook ad. Let's say a flood hits maybe a city in the northeast. You want to drive donations. Your first idea could be, let me put an image of an actual flooded street over there showing the level of chaos which is there and put a donate now button, and you have a hypothesis people will be moved by that image and go ahead and donate. It may have worked in the past, doesn't mean it will always work. So option B for you can be that you have a image of a family being rescued. Rather than showing the negative aspect of how much destruction has been created, show a positive aspect of a family being rescued, and then a message like your help can save lives. These have two very different tonalities, two very different visual approaches, and then you can run a campaign to see which is engaging more with your audience. Like for on a personal basis, I'm not a very big fan of ads that rely on the distress which is present and try to gain a donation out of me. I would rather donate to the other one where I see a family being rescued again from the ground only, and then I realize my help has saved lives. And when you put this, and this is a very a very simple example I gave, but the idea is every time you have to run a campaign, you'll create a set of hypotheses. The hypotheses that you pick up, they always need to be validated and invalidated. And we cannot have that idea that, oh, my hypothesis is always going to be correct, so even if the ad is not performing, for example, not getting donation, I'll keep boosting and boosting and boosting it. You should always do a B test, a C test to see what is working. And as I said, marketing isn't static, it's evolving. People's behavior change. 10 years ago, I would have loved to go to a barbecue nation. Today, I can barely think of going there. I cannot eat. So, a campaign of barbecue nation, like if a restaurant wanted to attract me 10 years ago, show a 9.99 or like all included buffet, I would be excited. Today, I'm scared of those ads. Like, I can't eat that. So, just because something has worked in the past doesn't mean it will always work in the future. So keep that, hat where you even test your hypothesis and you are very open to your hypothesis is not working out, you with your past campaigns not working out, and having the idea to see find what works out. And lastly, with all this information, optimize the channels based on data. Pulse Polio, when they started, they were doing print ads and paper ads, magazine ads, but they very, I think in the late 90s, they switched to Amitabh Bachchan saying Do Boon Zindagi Ki, because radio was much more prevalent in the rural areas. Amitabh Bachchan was a known figure, and that entire impact of hearing Do Boon Zindagi Ki, that two drops can save your life, had a much more impact than reading a full one-page creative in a newspaper, because essentially half of the audience that they were trying to target me could not even read. So, with all this data that you have collected, your goal should be optimizing the channels. That as I said, they launched door-to-door campaigns where people did not have access to going to a vaccination center. So the channel changed from even putting up a vaccination center in a block to having a mobile van going around. And whenever you run a campaign and you are trying to make sure that you are trying to reach the key audience and you are refining your strategies continuously, probably these 5 steps can help. They will have multiple sub steps for sure, but as a guardrail, these 5, if you're able to do, your campaign should technically perform better. Any questions before I move on to the next section where how you adjust strategies? Okay, so Priya, the question, grassroots organization do not have budgets and often rely on free ways of distribution. Can you give example? When you say distribution, Supriya, what do you mean? I'm not able to get that. Advertising. Okay. So, examples which are free. Okay, so even if you are a grassroots organization, I would believe that while you do not have monetary resources to run ads, you would definitely have a contact database in your repository or in your Rolodex that you have built over the years that align with your goal, and then they can act as mobilizers. So one of the things that worked in a campaign for me in the past was that when I was working for this organization, they wanted to run a behavioral change campaign around the idea of giving. They just didn't have budgets to go around to boost their posts on social media. However, they had a network of people who were effectively known on social media. So what we did is, like, if I am putting out a message, let's say on 11 a.m., I already reached out to those network of people requesting them that, hey, you are really into this notion of giving. I am running a campaign. Can you help me spread the word in an organic manner? So it becomes like a snowball or an avalanche effect, that if I put out that same message and the same message was put out by 8 to 10 known people, the propensity of that message being caught up was higher. So you have to do influencer marketing, but you have to be smart around how do you choose influencers. You cannot go and pay influencers. But let's say if you're running a campaign around maternal health in Uttar Pradesh. You are a grassroots organization. Let's say I don't even pick up Lucknow. You are in a district like Lakhimpur Kheri, which has very low budget grassroots organization running over there. If you're able to make sure that whatever your campaign voice is, some of the district officers, some of the Gram Panchayat members, some of the health officers are able to spread your message, obviously in an organic manner, you will be able to get your message out in a wider manner, in a more effective manner. So it's about choosing your right influencers and making them, collaborate with you, not in a paid manner, not in a manner that is inorganic, but probably organic influencers is something that tends to work They can forward the message on their WhatsApp groups. They can put a message in their LinkedIn channels, and then people will get to see your message from a credible foresight. Does that answer your question, Supreet? Cool. Okay. So now in the previous one, we built a campaign, and we set up a mechanism of knowing our audience and refining it. A campaign does not have a short life. It has a long life, and it needs to be adjusted, and it needs to be assessed that whether or not is effective. So how do you do that? So like in the previous in the previous section, I talked about defining your marketing goals and what you're trying to do. You define a equally clear set of KPIs. I know it's a very corporate word, and us in the developmental sector hate it. But for a second, if you put that bias away and feel that if I was planning on my campaign to increase awareness, what are the KPIs I have? And if I was doing something to increase donations, what were my KPI? Number of donations, cost per donations, conversion rate. Whereas, if I'm doing a behavioral change, what are the behavioral change factors? Second time donors, recurring visits, donor referring donors. So if you have your marketing objective defined clearly, and then you have your KPIs defined, you can very clearly measure your KPI against your marketing objective. If you have wanted to increase awareness and the number of people visiting your social media and the landing page are increasing, which means you have done your awareness part. However, to increase conversions or donations in this case, your number of donors should include increase the cost per donation that you're trying to get should increase. Whereas if it's an entire behavioral change campaign, you should have second time, third time donors. You should have donors introducing or referring their family members and friends. That's how you will be able to understand that versus your goal, are you able to hit your KPIs? The second, as I said, running, analyzing data during the campaign. This is something, if you can think, if it's a blood donation NGO that we were talking about, and they ran a WhatsApp campaign to drive the signups. You will have different messaging formats, and you track responses, that are people showing interest, are people not showing interest, and that will help you identify patterns and bottlenecks. So if people are coming onto your page but they are dropping off at some point of time, which means something in your messaging is not working out. Now if you just look at it from a holistic view and not do it granular, you will feel, oh, my campaign is not working. What is not working? Is it the initial messaging, or is the call to action, or is the entire data validation you have given? But if you pick up drop off points, you'll realize, well, people were moved by my message, they came to my landing page, but something in my process, something in my credibility, something in my validation did not work out. And then you adjust, you optimize, you make sure you identify what is not working, which channel is not working, which message is not working, and then you refine your campaign a little bit. This is very very widely used in software as a service, where they pitch that, okay, let's say if I pick up a software like Slack, they'll go message collaborate effectively. You go to the landing page, they have different features, and they optimize to see what features people engaging and what features people are not engaging with. A similar approach can be done in development sector. When you are, let's say, talking about blood donation, you have different types of messages, and you try to see what is getting, like, we need blood donors today, great message, I am interested to go click on your website or landing page. I go there, and then I don't see a clarity of why this drive is around, what is the result or impact that you have been able to drive in the past. I may feel it's just like a general clickbait, good intent, but then no clarity of why they are doing the exercise. But if your landing page acts as a social proof that what you have done in the past, actual people, not the celebrity one, but actual people who have engaged, my intent could effectively vary that, oh, these guys have something good at heart, let's go ahead and do it. The fourth one, again, over here becomes that you make an iterative adjustment to your messaging. Maybe the first time you said your donation can save lives. The second time you go and said, like, somebody in a hospital needs you today. Will you help? There are two different emotions in these two messages. You can see that what has been the click rate around it. With you have so many free digital tools that you can actually measure campaigns very easily now. And all of the even the bigger ones like SEMrush, etc., give you a free version where if you put two campaign and two messaging out, you can get to see which one worked. Maybe your donation can save lives, got you 50,000 donations, but a patient in a hospital needs your help today. Will you help? That got you a 1,50,000 donation. You know that probably your audience is converting more to the second message. So your messages will be more emotionally driven rather than just giving out a hard call to action. And lastly, you adjust and scale based on the insights. A picture is working versus a content format of a video was working. You can get that. You smartly, if you are lucky enough to be in a SPO that has funds to run digital marketing, you can take a call to allocate funds to highest performing channels. Maybe WhatsApp is working better for you rather than Facebook. Then you go organic on Facebook. Whether on WhatsApp you can get APIs integration to make sure you reach out to more people. Otherwise, if you run everything on a blanket manner without analyzing the individual silos, which sometimes we are guilty of neglecting, you can optimize your performances a little better. You can allocate your fund a little bit more judiciously. We are never going to be in a situation where we have plethora of fund that, oh, every channel we go gungo around. But if you're able to derive insights, and they can be new insights, maybe paid is not working for you. Maybe you need to do an email campaign and your email campaign works better. Having all those insights does help you refine your projects a little better. Even when, I love to go back to the pulse polio thing, that when government realized that TV ads were not alone, they brought in radio ads, they brought in door-to-door awareness with people going there talking to the families, making sure the kids who were vaccinated, they got that ink on their nails, to even subtly communicate within the community that itne bachcho ka vaccination ho chuka hai, these many kids are vaccinated, you should also go ahead and vaccinate your kid to be a part of that crowd. So all that adjustment based on the insights will help you just make sure your resource are very spent in a very clear manner and you are able to optimize it, which is actually the last section, that what are the key things we can do for optimization. And yeah, any questions before I move to the last section over here? Cool. Okay. Now, this is going to be as a SPO professional, as an NGO professional, or even somebody related to the development sector. This will be your biggest problem statement. How to optimize our limited resources. You are not a Facebook, you are not a Netflix. You are somebody with a better intent than a Facebook or Netflix, but with way smaller margins and way smaller funds for marketing to run your campaigns and get your word out. So how do you do that? And everything that I have told in the past two sections, they are all interconnected. They are built to it. And the idea is you always have to put your bias aside and identify your high impact channel. Maybe when you started your messaging around blood donation or a maternal health or a reproductive health exercise, you went thin. You and that's what you have to do. You have to spread thin. You have to go on all the digital mediums possible, all the traditional mediums possible, and start your campaign. But judiciously, if you are able to analyze and spot what is working, what is not working, you identify your high impact channel and you build on it. Because instead of doing everything, it is always advisable on focusing on the 3-4 things that work. You have X amount of money, you have Y amount of people to reach to. You cannot spend it across channels which are not working. And your biggest enemy over there, more than data analysis and data availability, is your personal bias. Because probably two of your past Facebook campaigns work great. At the back of the head, you'll always have the voice saying Facebook, Facebook, Facebook. Listen to it, but then judiciously go and see if that is the right call in this campaign for this segment with this messaging. I have known SPOs initiatives that have somehow worked better on cold emails. But that doesn't mean that every time you spend all your effort on cold emails, you start, maybe you do a batch of 500, you see there is no open rates, you quickly take a pause on it and you see what else worked. It could be WhatsApp, it could be Facebook, it could be LinkedIn. There's so many channels, but you always have to put your bias aside and identify the high impact channel so that you are able to cut down on what we can call it resource wastage, and be very careful with what you are spending and where you are spending. The second, which, with the advent of AI and all the technologies, is becoming easy and is very important, is that you automate and personalize communication. So I personally know of a lot of SPOs that end up wasting a lot of time and money on generic mass outreach. Yes, for awareness, a mass outreach is necessary. You need to get a lot of people get to know of what you are doing. But for driving action, it's a very sales concept, but everything you do is a funnel. On the top of the funnel is awareness. On the bottom of the funnel is conversion. If 1 lakh people are getting aware of your actions, doesn't mean all 1 lakh will contribute. You will have your 100, 500 donors. And for them to reach that bottom of the funnel where they actually convert, you have to personalize your messaging. You cannot go around and put generic messaging or generic follow-ups. If I am a past donor, I donate to a lot of NGOs. What I appreciate when I get from them is a personalized donation reminder based on my past action, that hey, last time you donated and this was the result, why don't you donate now? Whereas if I get a very generic message, donate now, probably I'll not engage. But the first time donors, if people you see that are actually moving down in your funnel, you need to send. I mean, again, all of these need to be validated every time you run a campaign. But traditionally, impact stories work better than donation asks. Somebody is interested that, okay, I want to donate for a maternal health campaign that this NGO is running. Now, next time you just go around, donate, 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 it will throw them off. But if you show impact stories that, with the donations, you went to a village in a remote part of India and you are able to improve the stats around maternal health, around reproductive health, that will drive them more. And obviously, you have a large donor cloud over there for which you have to do one on, like, you cannot do a customized one on outreach, but you have to be very careful that awareness versus conversion is a very different ball game. And if you're able to personalize, even automate, so no automated reminders can be set up. You have tools like MailChimp and Zoho Campaign, which your organization will have. You have a database. Those automation, timely automation and personalization, they tend to drive better impact. And this was just a case of newsletters and emailers. Even on WhatsApp and Facebook, these tend to work. So, once you have identified your high impact channel, make sure you go and try to personalize the communication to the best you can. This one goes, in conjunction with the first and second, that in case you have a budget, that is a ad spend budget on the social media channels that you're trying to run, what you can do is you can always stagger the budget users. That maybe in the first few days you spend equal budgets on the different channels, and then you quickly try to do a rough analysis of which was working, which was not, and then whatever was working you scale on it, and whatever was not working you either pause or you bring it down to the minimal, and then you are able to see that probably your trends of conversion will be higher. As I said, wastage is a word I sometimes use, and a lot of my colleagues over here in SPOs don't like it. But every campaign has a wastage. You can never have it come down to zero, but as managers of digital marketing or marketing initiatives in those SPOs, when you're sitting down, you should always use data to reduce your wastage. I have seen NGOs and SPOs trying to just set up events after event, and only 20% of the invited people attended that event. Now that is a number that comes as a feedback to you. You should go and try to see why only 20% attended, whether it was a physical one or a digital one. That are people even interacting with the content, or that engaging with the content that I have created? Can there be anything that can be refined in the event messaging or even in the event placement that you need to do? and then you take a call accordingly, that hey, you know what, maybe next time instead of physical, let's do a digital event. Or if you're doing a physical event, probably you have chosen a location which is tough for people to come, or the messaging is too generic and people are like, what will be my takeaway from the event? So think from their perspective. We are always guilty that, oh, my event is my baby, I want to go around and make the best noise around it. But do you even realize that what value you're offering, is it valuable for the attendees? Put them, put yourself in their shoes and try to see that, oh, if this is engaging for them, it is feasible for them, it's like, in accessible location, on accessible date and time, and people can come, probably your campaign will have another shot at being more successful, rather than if you were just like you are repeating the templates year after year and day after day. And lastly, which is an ideal scenario, that if we are all in a position to predict and prepare for future needs, we as marketeers and social impact, firstly, we sometimes pick up these initiatives of data analysis pretty late, and then we react too late. We should use data to predict the trends and predict the demand, but no, because we are spread thin, we have lack of resources, we are wearing different hats, we are sometimes not able to react on time. And then what happens, that next time you're trying to run a campaign, misses or things that did not work in the first campaign will tend to repeat. So faster response, making sure that whatever trends happen, one thing I always ask my colleagues over here to do is, whenever a campaign is done, whether it was successful one or unsuccessful one, do a retrospective. Your retrospective is equally important than the entire campaign structure that you created for the next year. What small thing worked, what small thing did not work, why it worked, why it did not work. If you have answer to these four questions, your next iteration of your marketing campaign will be 1% better. I'm not asking anyone in my network of SPOs to go and drastically turn a campaign through. It is not practically feasible. But even if we are able to improve it 1%, that is 1% of better resource users, that is 1% of scaled impact, that is 1% more accurate people reached and accurate action delivered. Over the time, it can scale up to 100 and a 200 and 500. But taking that first step, that 1%, is the biggest challenge right now. And it's going to be until the people who are finally going to take reins of marketing in this sector, they build that approach. For I always say that if I look at this entire marketing and data driven marketing in SPOs, more than you know a lack of potential, a lack of technology, a lack of data availability, it's the mindset shift that needs to happen. If I have that mindset that within my limited capabilities, I'm at least going to start the exercise and at least going to give that one insight which will help the program team or which will help my team to run the campaign better, you will never start. Will you always have the right set of data? In one of the previous slide, I talked about the broken data ecosystem. Your data will always be wrong. It will be incomplete. It will be scattered. Can you wait for a utopian scenario where everything comes on to you, or no, comes on a platter to you, and then you run a campaign? It will never gonna happen. But does that mean, do you not start taking the first steps? Then you are again going to fall in the same pit of mistakes which your peers previously would have done. And despite the great good at heart and the great vision, the positive impact you want to create, you will again fall victim to the same issues or similar issues that you have created. So it's about that mindset. Be open to data. I have seen I've seen people being scared of data. If I just scroll back quickly and I show you so there's a marketunist cartoon person. You can follow him. This is the state of us. When we start, we're like, oh no, data, I don't need it. And then we come up with jargons like analytics is the death of creativity. I am guilty of saying it every 10 times. I think once I would always say that. And then once we start with data, we're like, this process is too complex. I have to go to 10 reports. Can't we do like a general report that 500 people collect? No, you should see out of those 500, out of your five audience segmentations, what was the click through? Excel and maths and data analysis are a chore, I understand. But if you're able to take it, you will realize that, it's the five stages of data driven marketing that he put out as a cartoon. You will eventually realize that data is there to support you and help you plan and execute your things better. It's just about having A, the intent, and B, resilience. Because even when you start in the intent, maybe the first three, four, five times, you will not be able to derive at times the insights which you feel were important enough to create transition or show result. But that doesn't mean you give up on it. You improve yourself, you improve your data structure a little better, you try to see what other secondary or tertiary insights you're able to drive. You will hit success eventually, and that will be the turning point. That will be the turning point, because what will happen, sorry, I should have had this at the end of the slide, but I totally missed it. Yeah, once you have that mindset shift now that is needed in the sector, that needs to be driven by people like you will realize that the one of the biggest concerns you get from people, that, oh, data cannot replace empathy. Data will never ever replace empathy. It will just enhance your decision making, to help scale the impact, to help optimize resources, to help make sure your team and the teams working with you work better. So if anyone comes and tells you data cannot replace empathy, say, yes, I agree to it. But data will help enhance my decision making a little bit. And that will actually add to me being more empathetic. At one point of time, I used to have that feeling that I will design initiatives for the community because I have done an MBA and I've worked in this sector. I later on realized that who am I to design an initiative for a community that has survived for 2000 years? They know their problem, they know their solution. I should be the enabler of access. I should enable access to the resources they require. They will solve the problem themselves in a sustainable manner. And that came with data, that all the initiatives we were planning had an initial good adoption rate, but were falling off. People were falling off later, and then they were doing the same solution they were doing in the past. Now, when we collaborated and co-created something, the result was amazing. Communities eventually tried to become sustainable. That's what we should focus at. So data will help you enhance your decision making, and personally for me, data has helped me be more empathetic. And with people like you in the sector, the more you adopt data driven marketing, that's where the shift will start to happen, not just in your personality, but in the sector. We need success stories to drive the change. And Netflix drove the change, and we have so many OTTs today. Everyone is trying to cater you in the manner they want to. If one of you go tomorrow and run a campaign where you use data insights to accentuate the impact, that word gets out. And as a social sector, the best thing is we do not hoard on our resources and our knowledge. We share it. We share the framework that we created with each other to ensure that the same can be used by them to create the impact. And that's where the change of the narrative will happen. That's where the change of the development sector will happen. And that's where the mindset shift for the entire ecosystem will happen. So, to conclude, in 1990, somebody sitting on an ugly computer with a 512 MB RAM, he or she decided that he can make India polio free using data driven marketing. And the same principle can be applied. It's not just for businesses, for corporates, for advertising. Data driven marketing has and can drive impact. And now it's for you guys to ensure you go ahead slowly. It's a behavioral change, it's an adoption, but slowly, as you bring more data driven approach into your marketing campaigns, in your communication campaigns, you will see the results and you will drive the results.